been very well thought out. I think it was kind of a knee-jerk reaction to a coach in New Orleans and a fan base that cried for weeks and weeks about a play that didn't go their way. When week after week, plays go against teams all the time, but you don't hear the level of whining that you heard coming out of New Orleans, which to me was a disgrace in itself.
Well, it's like the 2016 election, right? If we could only redo it, right? Sorry, that was my political pun for the week.
Yeah, well, you can't go back and redo anything. I mean, that's the thing is, you live with it and you move on, and you move on as the best you can. And I just think that what Sean Payton, they really bent over backwards, so to speak, to appease Sean Payton and that fan base. They're talking about bringing in the state judicial system to rule on it, and they wanted them to come back and play the final 2 minutes. The Saints had a chance to win that game, for crying out loud, in overtime, and Breeze threw an interception. I mean, I just don't understand, this knee-jerk reaction, and we're going to see how it plays out. But to me right now, looking at it a week after this rule is passed, I don't like it one bit.
So, speaking of moving forward in the owners' meetings, what do you think, a lot of this is behind closed doors, but you have to admit there were some conversations about Bob Kraft. Apparently he's not against all kneeling. Another bad joke. Somebody stop me. But
I just got it.
It just got
it went over my head.
When it hits you, it hits you. It's there. But
That's a good one.
Where did the Patriots go with this? He apologized for apparently nothing that he's admitting to. I really could care less if he pays for a happy ending. Turns out that he got 2 happy endings that day. He was in Florida and then in Kansas City. So nonetheless, but as the time come for him to just turn over the reins to his son, which was in the goings anyway, Robert Kraft and the New England Patriots, they're superhero, Marvel heroes, whatever you want to call them. There's not much that can happen as they've proven in the past that's going to change their legacy, that's going to change their dynasty. Bob Kraft should just retire, enjoy his millions, and as many happy endings as he wants.
Yeah, I mean, they're the gold standard, that franchise, no question about it. And why not retire when you're on top? And that's no pun intended there either. But
we can go along with this all day long, can't we?
Yeah, we probably could. But he's an old man. Where else is he going to get what he wants to satisfy his needs? I don't know. But I guess the crux of it too is, was there, the slavery, the child slavery thing going on there? I don't really know, but it certainly puts him in a bad light. And, he pled, like you said, he apologized for something he apparently didn't do. He pled not guilty, but then he apologized for doing what he just pled not guilty to. So that, that's kind of a strange look. I mean, look, something happened, obviously something went on. And if it was just as innocent as that, getting a so-called happy ending from, someone that was of legal age and there on her own free will, then, so be it. Move on. But there might be more to it than that. I'm not sure we'll ever know. And maybe it is time for him to kind of just go out and enjoy his millions or billions or whatever he's worth and, kind of be a figurehead of the franchise and let his son run things.
As they say, when the M turns into a V, it's just another letter. Here's the thing, in all fairness to Bob Kraft, and we want to just make sure we address this. He's not been accused of being involved in any type of sex trafficking incident at all. So that said, that's just a presumption because that was the investigation that was going on. In putting on my non-lawyer hat, but listening to lawyers talk, in the state of Florida, it is illegal to ask for an ID without probable cause. It's also, they pulled over his chauffeur. He was not driving. It's also illegal in the state of Florida to ask for the passenger's ID without probable cause. They made up some hunky-dunky thing of why they pulled him over, which is why they pulled him over was just to get his ID. And there's no audible audio because the court order that said that they could monitor the facility said monitor only, no audio. So no audio means they did not hear any type of solicitation. To prove solicitation, you have to hear audio saying, I'm offering you X amount of money for X amount of actions sexually wise. So that was not heard, which is why the courts are saying, okay, we'll drop this and make it just a citation, but we want you to admit that you would have been proven guilty in the court of law. No lawyer is going to let their client do that, whether or not it's Bob Kraft or not. So that said, in all fairness, we don't know, and we probably never will know because his lawyers have been very successful in getting this sealed. So we'll never see the tapes. If it gets out, then there's going to be a lot of repercussions, a lot of damages. People are going to get fired and go to jail. So the chances of us ever seeing this tape that's out there is not going to happen. So we don't know. What other recaps do we have from the owners meeting that are some takeaways? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, one final thing on that crash. So maybe that's his punishment is that, he's not found guilty in the court of law, but this is an embarrassing situation that will always follow him now. And, when you talk 10 years down the road about the Patriots dynasty, you'll mention obviously the Spygate and their cheating, and they'll mention Tom Brady's deflated balls, and you'll mention Kraft's inflated ball. Well, I mean Kraft's his wrong.
Maybe his balls were inflated that day. We don't know.
right. So I mean, that's just another chapter. I think in 10 years or so, when we're talking about the Patriots dynasty, that will be brought up. When you talk about all the good that they did, you'll also talk about the bad, the Spygate, Brady's balls, and Kraft's balls. So that's something that maybe that's the just punishment, is that this is kind of the embarrassing stain, so to speak, that won't go away.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the precedent that the Steelers set and that the Browns have set also. They've both got trade happy. I think this Antonio Brown thing, this Bell thing, and then all of the trades that the Browns did, maybe giving them a competitive advantage, but the NFL executives are really concerned about the precedent that these trades are setting. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I like the fact that there's trades in the NFL. I mean, we see it in baseball, and that's what makes that hot stove in baseball so exciting. You hit June and July, and you start seeing who's going to get traded. And I like the fact that there's trades, and I come at it from a perspective where the Eagles certainly are no strangers to trades. I mean, look at Howie Roseman. He traded Michael Bennett to the Patriots this offseason. He made 3 trades under the radar because they didn't have that same impact that Cleveland had in acquiring Olivia Vernon, who, by the way, is a very under-the-radar trade for them. Everybody's talking about Odell Beckham, but Olivia Vernon, opposite the other pass rusher there, Myles Garrett, that makes that defense so much better. So, I'm not opposed to trades at all. I don't, if you can make them in the NFL, where there was a time where the trade deadline in the NFL was very boring, very quiet. Nobody even knew when it was because there was no activity. To me, by allowing trades and having trades like this, it keeps the NFL, people talking about the NFL for months and months and months until the season begins. So I have no problem with them. I'm not sure why the owners would too. I think that I don't see any problem with them. I like the trades. Like I said with the Eagles, they got Deshaun Jackson in the trade. They got Jordan Howard in the trade. Traded away Michael Bennett. The Raiders traded for Antonio Brown. I mean, there have been lots of trades that have taken place, and teams do them for a reason. I think maybe they're worried of the fact that maybe the Miami Dolphins now look like they're kind of trying to tank the season the way the Cleveland Browns did for a number of years to kind of build up the cap collateral and the draft picks, and then parlay it into what they have now, which is probably the most talented roster in their division. And now maybe there's a fear that more teams will do it. And it looks like the Dolphins might be trying to do it by trading away Tannehill and signing Fitzpatrick. So, maybe that's a concern. But to me, I love the trades. I like when there's activity in the league, and it keeps fans very much engaged through an off season.
Talking with Ed Kratz, beat writer for the Philadelphia Eagles, our official NFL contributor, talking NFL trades, talking the owners' meeting, just trying to get our fix in so we could keep talking about football. But baseball started up this week. Let's get an amen. Baseball's back. My Cardinals are back. I have to make my annual prediction that the Cardinals are going to go to the World Series, and we'll see what happens. But you were talking about
the way. The way the Cardinals run their organization, you could say that legitimately every year and have a chance to get that right. The Cardinals always seem to be in the mix. I love Paul Goldschmidt. That guy could be the MVP
Absolutely.
of the league.
Absolutely.
So you could say that every year. The Cardinals are going to go to the World Series and have a legitimate chance to be right. I love the way they do things in St. Louis and the way they run that organization.
The Phillies, Bryce Harper, big contract. The Angels, Mike Trout. That's cute. It's just a matter of time till somebody makes $1 billion playing baseball. But nonetheless, you got to be happy with the Phillies and Bryce Harper. I think he's going to be there for a long time. Well, he's obviously going to be there for a long time. He solidified that.
Yeah, he did. And, it's funny because there's a local sports radio station here in Philadelphia that is trying to make a villain out of Mike Trout because, Mike Trout obviously is a Philadelphia sports fan. He comes to all the Eagles games. Him and Carson Wentz are huge buddies. And, it seems whenever an Eagles score a touchdown at home, Mike Trout's sitting in the front row, and one of them goes over and gives him the football. And, he grew up in South Jersey, right over the bridge from Philadelphia. So there's a local radio station that's trying to turn him into a villain for electing to stay in California, where there's no pressure. The Angels probably won't win anything. Fans are hit or miss out there as far as cheering for sports teams. And they're trying to make him sound like a villain, and they don't want him to come to any more Eagles games, or they want him booed when he comes here. And just trying to stir the pot. But, Mike Trout had to do what was right for him. And, man, that's a lot of money, $440 million. And I think Bryce Harper knew that, his record wasn't going to stand for long because Trout was out there. But still a lot of money. And Bryce Harper in Philadelphia, I think, will he live up to that contract? Probably not. But will he help this team win games, on a fairly regular basis? I think he will. A lot of excitement in Philadelphia, not only because Bryce Harper's here, but, they had Andrew McCutchen, who was a former MVP, who opened the season this year with a leadoff home run in the Phillies' opening day win over the Braves 10-4. They signed the closer, Dave Robertson, who might be a setup man, a very good eighth-inning man, while Sir Anthony Dominguez has the closing role. JT Realmuto, they got him in a trade, the best catcher probably in the National League, maybe in all of baseball. So there's excitement with those additions, and I think the Phillies are going to be a pretty good team and will contend for the NL East. Pitching might be a little bit of an issue, but we'll see what they do at the trade deadline. Here we go with trades again. I think they'll probably be in the race, and they'll probably want to add a pitcher. Who it will be and what they'll have to give up, who knows? But that's something, again, with trades. It's something we're going to talk about, and it's going to keep baseball in Philadelphia at on the front burner, where usually it's the Eagles all the time. Now the Phillies are kind of getting back in the mix here, and we're going to talk about baseball and what pitchers are out there. And, there is an excitement that has been generated. It'll be interesting to see. They play at 4 o'clock on Saturday. It'll be interesting to see how they follow up crowd-wise. They had an opening day crowd of close to 45,000 sellout. We'll see how if that can continue. But there is definitely a buzz and an excitement at Philadelphia with Bryce Harper, but also those other guys I mentioned, McCutchen, Realmuto, Gene Segura, the shortstop, very good hitter, fielder. So, there's a lot of excitement here in Philadelphia over the Phillies. I'm excited, for heaven's sakes, and, it's not even April yet.
Yeah, it is, almost. Couple more days. But yeah, I mean, we're both National League guys, so we'll see what happens. Some new rule changes and stuff. A long season to go, but I hope Bryce Harper does well for the Phillies. Unfortunately, guys are in the National League, so I'm just saying, go Cardinals. Ed Kratz.
Well, I was just going to say, it's interesting you mentioned the rule changes. I mean, I think it's not long before the NL comes along and takes the designated hitter. There's talk about that. And, certainly if that happens, Bryce Harper would probably become the DH most days for the Phillies. So I think that's going to happen sooner or later where they adopt the DH. And I think they should. I think it's time to do it.
Yeah, I disagree with that, but that's neither here nor there. I'm a old man, get off my lawn.
Yeah, I know.
Traditionalist.
Yep, I understand. Well,
So,
that's the conversation for another day, I guess.
absolutely.